He walked into the small cafe on the lower deck of the station with quiet steps. The station floated near the rim of a distant spiral arm, a place where travelers from many worlds took a break before heading toward trade routes or research outposts. The cafe had soft lights, recycled air that smelled faintly of roasted beans, and a crowd that thought they had seen everything. He looked simple. His clothes were plain, his face calm. Nothing about him suggested that he carried anything more than a worn satchel and a tired smile. Yet he paused near the counter and asked a question that made the room turn toward him. He asked if he could perform for a free coffee. For a second, the server behind the counter blinked. Then a few people nearby gave quiet laughs. Someone at a corner table whispered that he must be joking. Another guest chuckled and said that the station vans charged high credits, and even they could barely fill a room. The idea that this quiet traveler could produce anything worth listening to seemed unbelievable. Still he waited. The server raised a brow and asked him what he planned to perform. He pointed at the old piano resting near the back wall of the cafe. It was a relic from a cargo ship that had once traded antiques across human colonies. Dust had gathered near the wooden legs. The keys were a little uneven, but still intact. The idea of someone giving a show on that old thing made the laughter grow louder. But the server was in a generous mood. She nodded and agreed that he could play one tune. If it impressed her, she would give him a free drink. If not, he would still get to try. He thanked her and walked toward the instrument. The room went quiet for a moment as he pulled the small bench back. The bench screeched lightly on the floor. No one expected much. A few guests even pulled out small recording pins because mockery made for quick entertainment in the lower station feeds. He rested his hands on the keys. The piano felt cold from long disuse. He let his fingers stay still for a moment. Those close enough saw that his posture was steady in a way that didn't match his simple clothing. His breath was calm. His eyes focused with the intensity of someone who understood sound deeper than words could express. Then he played the first note. The sound was soft yet clear. It moved through the air like a small spark drifting in a quiet room. The cafe hummed with low chatter a moment before, but now the sound faded into silence. Even the ventilation seemed to soften, as if the entire station waited for the next tone. His fingers moved again and again. Each note carried a resonance that felt impossible for the old keys. People glanced at each other as if wondering whether the sound came from some hidden synth. Yet there was no device. Only a human touching an instrument older than most ships passing through this place. He let the melody grow. It rose like a slow dawn over a silent horizon. Then it climbed into something stronger, deeper, a sound shaped by someone who had traveled far beyond the usual limits of human learning. This was not a safe tune or a simple tune. It carried patterns that followed mathematical harmonics used in long-range communications between colonies. It carried human cultural chords that traced their roots to Earth, but also carried new tonal forms from living near advanced worlds. It was something that no one had heard before. It felt human yet larger than human. The room fell silent. Even the ones who mocked him earlier sat with eyes wide. The melody grew brighter until small vibrations moved through the floor. The piano keys lit faintly with soft blue lines. This was not any ordinary performance. This was something that required training that most musicians never reached. Some in the room recognized that the pattern resembled encoded harmonic, language once used in first contact events between humans and distant civilizations. A tone that spoke of peace and exploration. A tone that only a select few were allowed to study. Yet here was a simple man performing something similar with ease. He shifted the melody again. This time the music lifted like a deep breath before a bright leap through a star's light. The notes spun in circles, like gravity waves around a small moon. They glowed with emotion and carried stories without words. Every person felt something different. One traveler felt memories of a lost home colony. Another felt courage that had been missing for years. A young migrant worker felt hope that she thought had faded long ago. The sound reached every mind, not through power, not through devices, through pure music shaped by a human hand. Even the server behind the counter had stopped wiping cups and leaned forward with her hands resting on the counter's edge. She stared without blinking. Her earlier amusement was long gone. The mockers from before sat frozen as if time itself paused to listen. He did not speed up. He did not show off. He let each sound bloom and fade with perfect balance. It was like watching someone move starlight with their fingertips. It was like watching a human remind the galaxy that humans were capable of wonder beyond technology. This was HFY, humanity at its best. Humanity showing heart, creativity, and a spark no other species could replicate. As the melody shifted into its final rise, the vibrations lifted again. A few small objects on tables shook. A couple of cups rattled against their saucers. People gasped softly. They thought the piano had malfunctioned. Yet the man had only woven another harmonic layer into the tune. Some called it impossible for a human to control harmonic resonance so precisely. Yet he did it with calm grace. No strain, no fear, only music, and then silence. He ended the piece with a gentle final note. The sound faded like a soft farewell. His hands rested above the keys. His shoulders stilled. He kept his eyes on the piano for a moment, as if thanking it for holding the song. The room did not move. It took several seconds before anyone reacted. Then a deep gasp rippled through the entire cafe. Some clapped. Some stood. Some wiped tears they did not expect. The server behind the counter placed both hands over her mouth. Someone near the front said that no one in the station had ever heard music like that. Another murmured that they thought only the advanced academies near the core worlds trained performers like him. One traveler from a different species tilted his head and spoke in slow translation that the human had produced. Tonal sequences close to diplomatic songs used in peace ceremonies. The man rose from the bench and bowed politely. The server rushed forward and told him that he would not only get a free coffee, but could choose anything he wanted. He smiled and said coffee was enough. She prepared it with care and gave it to him in a warm cup. She apologized for the earlier mocking from the crowd, but he shook his head gently. He said that people often misjudge what they do not expect. He said humans have always grown strongest under gout. He said music was a form of connection, and that connection needed no apology. His words carried no pride, no arrogance, only calm truth. Some guests approached him with questions. They wanted to know where he learned such a skill. He only said he traveled and listened. They asked if he worked with any academy. He said no. They asked if he used implants. He said no. One asked if he was part of a secret program. He gave no direct answer. He only smiled. That smile unsettled a few guests, because it held a quiet confidence they could not measure. The man finished his coffee near the window, where the stars drifted past the station. He sat alone, yet did not appear lonely. A few guests whispered that he must be one of those gifted humans whose abilities expanded after working near advanced species. Others thought he carried training from old Earth traditions combined with modern science. Some even speculated that he might be one of the early harmonics researchers who vanished years ago during a long-distance expedition. But he gave no confirmation. He was simply content. The station buzzed with new energy. A small band approached the piano to inspect it. They expected to find modifications. But the piano remained ordinary. Old wood, Faded metal. Scratched sides. Nothing unusual. The truth that a normal instrument produced something so powerful pushed them into stunned silence. As he stood to leave, someone asked if he would perform again. He answered that he might if life brought him back. Then he picked up his satchel and walked toward the exit. People parted to let him pass. Their eyes followed him with the respect they had denied him minutes before. Outside the cafe, the station corridor glowed with soft blue lights. He walked slowly, as if enjoying the hum of engines and distant chatter. No one knew that he had once served on a research vessel that studied harmonic waves beyond map space. No one knew that he had once played for a council of many species during a peace trial between worlds. No one knew that he used to teach small groups of young explorers how to channel emotion into frequencies that traveled farther than words. He kept these memories quiet. They were heavy and bright at the same time. He stepped into the lift that would take him toward the transport ring. Just before the door closed, he looked back down the hall. The cafe door still stood open. People remained gathered around the piano. He hoped they would treat the instrument kindly. He hoped the music he left behind would inspire someone to discover their own talent. The lift door slid shut. He lowered his gaze. The hum of the machinery surrounded him. He took a slow breath. Music was human. Humanity had always been underestimated. Humanity had built their place in the stars with grit and creativity, not only with force. Many species advanced with logic alone. Others shaped culture with tradition alone.